Hello there. My favorite kind of people. The misread, the underestimated, the ones they tried to fix, sedate, silence, and failed. You. Yeah, you. You are the exact blueprint of what terrifies the system, not because you're violent, not because you're evil, but because you see. You see too much. You notice the glitches, the patterns, the rituals in plain sight. You walk into a room and read every twitch, every fake smile, every ego mask like a second language. They don't fear the loud ones. They don't lose sleep over rebels throwing bricks at windows. They fear you, the calm observer, the one who laughs when everyone else is crying, because you already knew it was a setup. Behind those two-way mirrors, the best minds in the CM, behavioral experts with 10 PhDs and God complexes, they studied you. They ran simulations, probed, analyzed your digital footprint, measured your psychological profile against anomalies in the population, and they all came to the same terrifying conclusion. Recruit this person, or we're all dead. Why? Because you're not supposed to exist. You were never part of the algorithm. You slipped through their filtering systems like a virus they couldn't quarantine. You don't break rules for fun. You break them because they're stupid. Because they were designed to keep people like you small, silent, ashamed. While the puppeteers preach obedience through fake smiles, you sat back and said, wait, none of this adds up. And that's where the fear kicks in, because when one person refuses to drink the poison, others start questioning the cup. They call it antisocial. You call it finally honest. They call it unstable. You call it awake. They call it dark. You call it real. You don't live in fantasy. You live in the aftermath. You know the price of betrayal, abandonment, manipulation. Not because you read it in a book, but because you lived it, alone, cold, watching people you trusted treat you like a problem instead of a person. And that's when something inside you stopped asking to be fixed. That's when the mutation began. Not a weakness, not madness, a shift. Something primal, clear, unshakable. And that's what they couldn't replicate. They begged for your loyalty, offered titles, paychecks, fake status symbols. But you're not here to be bought. You're not here to play normal. You're here because the world is bleeding and most people don't even know they're wounded. You walk through their illusions like smoke. They built an empire of fear. But your silence? It made them question their own reality. You weren't built for war. But damn, you are war, internal, psychological, relentless. You've weaponized every time they laughed at you. Turned every scar into sonar, every betrayal into a laser-guided missile for truth. They tried to label you. Too intense, too emotional, too complicated. But guess what? The human soul wasn't meant to be a corporate product line, and you're what happens when someone wakes up and says, I don't need permission to be powerful. You didn't just survive hell, you built a throne in it. You didn't just walk through darkness. You lit a cigarette and made it your kingdom. The CIA couldn't decode your patterns. They sat in dark rooms whispering, if this one starts talking, if this one starts leading, if this one stops doubting themselves, it's over. Because your mind is a live wire. Your intuition is an oracle, and your presence, it makes cowards choke on their own masks. You don't fit into systems. You collapse them. You don't adapt to dysfunction. You dissect it. And when they finally asked their elite think tanks how to control you, they couldn't. They quit. They tapped out. Because every scenario where you're fully activated ends in truth exposure, mass awakening, and total system breakdown. You're not dangerous because you hurt people. You're dangerous because you heal people who were never supposed to wake up. You give language to the rage everyone else buries. You point to the mask and say, "Hey, this isn't you." And that shatters the whole damn simulation. You've been gaslit into doubting your own genius. You've been guilt-tripped for making liars uncomfortable. You've been exiled by cowards who couldn't face your mirror. But they never broke you. They just triggered the wrong monster. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not lost. You are the statistical impossibility they never accounted for. The one human variable they couldn't predict. The wild card they can't program. You are the living glitch. And glitches crash the whole thing system. You are the one they whisper about behind closed doors. The one that doesn't respond to bribes, flattery, manipulation, or fear. You see through charm like it's made of glass. You sit across from people who've lied their entire lives, and your eyes say, "Cut the act." I already know you've made kings stutter, made experts forget their lines, made entire rooms shift uncomfortably just by walking in. Because you carry a vibe that can't be faked, can't be explained, can't be tolerated by cowards. There's something in the way you just know. The way you clock every game, every fake laugh, every passive-aggressive dig, every hidden agenda. Not because you're paranoid, but because you've been in the fire with people who smiled while stabbing. You learned the difference between "I'm fine" and "I'm breaking," between "I'm proud of you" and "I'm scared you'll outgrow me." You hear tones people don't even know they're speaking in. You pick up on the flicker in their eye, the twitch in their lip, the micro delay in their laugh, and suddenly their whole mask unravels in your presence. That's not something you trained for. That's something you earned through raw psychological warfare called your life. While others played house, you were surviving emotional landmines in real time. While they memorized flashcards on human behavior, you were decoding manipulation tactics in your own family, in your school, in your so-called friends. That kind of experience doesn't come with a diploma. It comes with insomnia, with years of asking yourself if you were the problem, with years of trying to shrink yourself to make others feel safe in your presence. But you've stopped doing that, haven't you? Because they were never scared of you. They were scared of being seen, and you. You see everything. You're the type who walks into a room and immediately knows who's fake laughing, who's people-pleasing, who's playing alpha, and who's dying inside. You don't even need to speak. Your energy exposes people. And that is why they can't stand next to you without unraveling. You don't even try to destroy anything. It just happens. Because truth vibrates higher than illusion, and your entire existence is built on that frequency. You don't care about winning fake games. You care about piercing through the bullshit and watching reality twitch. You don't manipulate. You don't need to. Because you mastered the most dangerous skill of all, clarity. And clarity is a scalpel in a world that worships plastic smiles and emotional fog. You don't just see people, you read them, scan their nervous systems like a goddamn MRI machine with a grudge. You know when someone's performing. You know when someone's suppressing rage behind a grin. You know when they're about to crack. And they know you know. That's why the so-called experts quit. Because they've studied thousands of minds. But yours? Your mind didn't match any pattern. It broke the model. It rewrote the metrics. It made the data turn on itself like a snake, eating its own tail. You're not out here playing savior. You're not trying to be a hero. You're just done pretending that what you see isn't real. Done apologizing for making people uncomfortable with your presence. Done shrinking to fit into fake-ass circles of positive vibes only, when you can smell the rot beneath the glitter. You don't wear masks. You rip them off people's faces with your stillness. You sit in silence and suddenly someone starts confessing things they've buried for years. Not because you asked, but because your energy hits like an emotional defibrillator. Boom! Everything that was buried comes alive. You are not too much. You are just too real for people still married to the lies they tell themselves. You're not broken. You're battle-tested. You didn't get here by accident. You were forged in betrayal, in silence, in isolation, in the kind of pain that rewires a soul. And the irony? They tried to break you into something small, but instead they built the very thing that haunts their sleep. You are not chaos. You are the consequence of lies colliding with someone who refuses to be fooled. You're not angry. You're just allergic to fake peace built on emotional slavery. They said, recruit them or face extinction. Because in every timeline where you're not contained, you dismantle the facade, not with bombs, not with violence, but with unfiltered presence, with unflinching honesty, with eyes that make people remember who they really are. You didn't come here to play their games. You came here to flip the whole damn board. You're not dangerous because you break rules. You're dangerous because you break narratives. You strip away every socially acceptable excuse, every feel-good lie wrapped in therapy speak, every manipulative story people cling to so they don't have to grow. And you do it with a look, a phrase, a vibe that cuts deeper than any scripted intervention ever could. You don't chase attention. You don't ask for permission. You don't waste time trying to be liked by people who've never even liked themselves. Because you know what that whole game smells like. Desperation disguised as status. Validation addiction dressed up in designer. People-pleasing parading as good character. That's why every place you go, the energy shifts. It's not just that you walk in the room. It's that the lies people tell themselves start screaming when you're nearby. The fake personas get shaky. The power dynamics start cracking. Because you don't respond the way they were taught everyone would. You don't fall for the trap. You don't play nice just to keep the peace. And you don't flinch when the mask slips. You're not the storm. You're the stillness that makes people realize the storm is inside them. And they hate you for it. And they need you for it. And they pretend they don't see you while watching your every move. Because you remind them of what they buried. And what they could become if they ever stopped lying to themselves. You speak truths out loud that make people's skin crawl. Not because you're trying to be edgy, but because your tongue got tired of gagging on silence. You've already swallowed too much pain in your lifetime to start censoring yourself just to make cowards comfortable. You're not rebellious, you're resolved. There's a difference. Rebellion flails to be seen. Resolution stares through the noise. You don't argue, you observe. And in your silence, people feel their own bullshit echo. You can't be gaslit because you've done the work. You know your own wiring. You've dug into your own shadow with bare hands and bleeding fingers. You've faced the ugliest parts of your own psyche and didn't flinch. You owned it. You metabolized it. You became unblackmailable. That's what really terrifies them. They can't dangle guilt over your head anymore. They can't trap you with fake intimacy or borrowed authority. You don't need their approval, their likes, their mentorship, their crumbs. You're not part of the echo chamber. You're the hammer that breaks the mirror so people have to see what's behind the reflection. And yeah, it's messy. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. But damn, it's real. You became a psychological supernova in a world of emotional puppets. And when they couldn't decode your behavior, they called you unpredictable. When they couldn't manipulate you, they called you difficult. When they couldn't break you, they called you cold. But deep down, they knew. You weren't any of those things. You were just done with the performance, done with the fake laughs, the small talk, the hollow goals. You carry weight. Not the kind that burdens, the kind that reveals. Your presence makes truth unavoidable. Your silence makes noise unbearable. Your focus, it's surgical. And it makes people drop the act because they know they won't survive your clarity with their illusion intact. You're the type who says 3 words and somebody spirals for days. Not because you were cruel, but because you touched the part they've been hiding under 10 layers of fake success and spiritual bypassing. You didn't just survive the system, you hacked it, you found the cracks, you mapped out the exits, you rewired your trauma into a 6th sense and turned your scars into Fing sonar. You're not intense, you're accurate, you're not antisocial, you're anti-bullshit, you're not intimidating, you're a mirror, and they can't stand what they see. You didn't come here to blend in. You came here to activate people who forgot they were dangerous. You came here to wake the sleepers, pull the masks, and shake the system by just existing in your full, unfiltered, unedited self. You are the one that made the CIA analysts quit, because no simulation could replicate you, no manipulation could contain you, no prediction model could define your next move. Because you've gone beyond reaction. You've entered creation. And creation? That's where gods are born. You didn't just wake up one day with this clarity. You earned every inch of it through blood, silence, and staring at ceilings at 3 a.m., wondering if you were losing your mind, or if everyone else was just pretending to be sane. You were never crazy. You were tuned in while everyone else was numbing out. You were decoding while they were distracting. And because you felt too deeply, saw too clearly, they labeled you like a threat they couldn't explain. They said you were unstable. But what they meant was, you wouldn't shut up about the things everyone else pretended not to notice. You called out the power games dressed up as leadership. You questioned the smiles that came with strings attached. You looked authority in the face and said, "You don't own my soul just because you have a badge, a title, or a desk on the 47th floor. You've been punished your whole life for refusing to lie to yourself. People ghosted you, not because you were wrong, but because you made them confront everything they've buried. You didn't kill the vibe. You killed the illusion. You didn't start drama. You exposed the performance, and the performance doesn't survive around you because you don't need it. You're the anomaly that makes the blueprint obsolete. You're the wild variable that turns the formula into gibberish. You're what happens when someone stops playing the character they were told to play and starts living from the raw, unfiltered center of their own mind. The analysts watched you, read your conversations, tracked your patterns, and every time they thought they had you figured out, you did something that shattered their whole framework. Because your decisions aren't rooted in fear, approval, or control. Your decisions are rooted in truth, and truth doesn't follow protocol. Truth doesn't make people feel safe. Truth shifts tectonic plates in their psyche. That's what you are. You're a living, breathing, walking seismic event. And when people feel your presence, they either rise or collapse. You've got that energy that makes people question their entire identity in one conversation. You say one sentence and they spend a week journaling and pacing around their apartment, wondering why it hit like a punch to the ribs. Because you're not giving opinions. You're channeling undeniable soul-level data that bypasses the intellect and goes straight into the bloodstream. It's not that you're loud. It's that your presence echoes. You've survived gaslighting, betrayal, spiritual bypassers, emotional parasites, fake mentors, abusive healers, and every manipulative system built to profit off of people doubting themselves. And somehow, you came out clearer, colder, sharper, quieter, and 100 times more dangerous, not because you fight, because you don't have to. Your clarity does the work for you. Your presence alone makes liars flinch, manipulators fumble, and cowards find the nearest exit. You became what every system secretly fears: a sovereign mind, a soul with zero dependence on external approval, a person who doesn't respond to shame, praise, guilt, threats, or bribes, a person who can't be puppeteered by anything fake. They thought you were just another cog. But you were the thing fuse, and when you lit up, everything false around you started burning. You are not the reaction. You are the reset. You are not the symptom. You are the reminder of what happens when someone remembers exactly who the hell they are. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the roles, beneath the fear, you carry an intensity people try to copy but can't survive. Because it wasn't downloaded from a podcast, wasn't learned in a course, wasn't given in a ritual. It was forged in silence, when no one was clapping, and you had to choose between being accepted or being real. And you chose real. You chose the path with no map, no backup, no applause. Just instinct, raw gut feelings, and the quiet voice that said, "This isn't who I am. I'm done playing along." You walked away from comfort, not because you like chaos, but because you saw the price tag attached to conformity. Your soul, your fire, your thing truth. You were never meant to sit still and smile while the world burns behind closed doors. You weren't built to say yes with your mouth when every cell in your body screams, "This is a lie." You were built for disruption, for piercing through the noise with a presence so real, it forces people to confront what they've been avoiding for years. And that's why those behavioral experts tapped out. Because their entire field was built on patterns. But you don't repeat patterns. You break generational curses. You don't mirror behavior. You flip it inside out. They couldn't track you because you're not running loops. You're running on truth code. And truth doesn't follow scripts. You were supposed to be medicated, suppressed, corrected, turned into a walking nod machine with a polite smile and no questions. But instead, you weaponized your overthinking. You turned emotional depth into psychic precision. You stopped apologizing for your discomfort and started using it like a scalpel. Because your sensitivity, it's not weakness. It's data. It's intel. It's the radar system the world tried to convince you was a burden. They told you to calm down while standing in a burning building. But you smelled the smoke before anyone noticed the heat. You always do. They weren't prepared for someone like you. Not because you're loud, but because you're exact. You don't fight dirty. You don't beg. You don't perform. You just stand there with all your intensity, your awareness, your refusal to fake it. And people start confessing things you didn't even ask because they can feel it. The part of you that's not here for small talk. The part of you that sees past the brand names, the spiritual masks, the I'm fine energy, the trauma that's been rebranded as personality. You see all of it, and you don't flinch. And That's the kind of power no system can survive. Because you're not just questioning authority. You're embodying the truth that makes external control irrelevant. They can't leash you with fear because you've already walked through it. Can't seduce you with power because you've seen what it does to empty people. Can't shame you into silence because you dismantled shame like a faulty hard drive. You are the psychological firewall they never saw coming. You are the human glitch in the predictive model. You are the living proof that awareness is contagious, and once it spreads, control collapses. You're not dangerous because you might do something. You're dangerous because you've already become something. Something they can't undo. You're not a sleeper cell. You're fully awake, fully aware, and fully unwilling to pretend anymore. Well, well, well. Look who finally woke up with smoke in their lungs and chaos in their blood. Welcome to the wrong side of average, where you're not just breaking rules, you're breaking patterns, where every step you take sounds like a siren going off in the system that was never built for you to win. They didn't just notice you, they filed reports, they held meetings, they pulled out the old dusty playbook labeled, "Contain the Anomaly." Because what you're doing right now, that ain't just success, that ain't just glow up. That's unlawful excellence, that's felony-level evolution. That's you going so hard, they had to call the Alphabet Boys just to feel safe. You ever win so damn hard that the entire room changes temperature when you walk in? Yeah. That's this level. That's the kind of win that doesn't come from books or podcasts or someone else's blueprint. That comes from rage that fermented into resilience. That comes from wounds that learned how to whisper directions. That comes from being buried so deep under disrespect, silence, and failure that you clawed your way up with teeth made of spite and hands blistered by belief. You didn't just climb, you dug. Through generations of trauma, through systems that don't blink when you bleed, through voices that told you, be realistic. Realistic? Realistic? They said be realistic while you were building a cathedral out of ashes, a kingdom out of no's, an empire out of every door that got slammed in your face. You want to know why they're uncomfortable? Because you weren't supposed to flip the script. You were supposed to sit still, play nice, smile on cue, and maybe, get a participation trophy if you begged loud enough. But you didn't beg, you built. And when they laughed, you kept going. When they ghosted, you got louder. When they doubted, you turned your whole damn life into an indictment against their mediocrity. And now you walk in rooms they thought you'd never enter, like a crime scene. Every look you get is a fingerprint. Every whisper, surveillance. Every fake smile, a cover-up. Because when you're this undeniable, when your evolution is this loud, they don't just feel envy. They feel threatened. They see your growth as aggression, your presence as disruption, your success as violation. And they're not wrong. You are dangerous, because you're living proof that the system's ceiling was never glass. It was cement, and you broke it anyway. They rang the FBI? Good. Let them check the footage. Let them run the numbers. Let them decode the miracle. Because there's no algorithm for what you've become. You ain't running off luck. You're running off decades of disappointment, compressed into nuclear clarity. You're running off heartbreaks that turned into fuel. You're running off every time you were told to be humble when they really meant shrink. But you don't shrink anymore. You detonate. You were supposed to stay in your lane. Instead, you blew up the whole highway. You were supposed to be digestible. Instead, you became an acquired taste for those who could stomach real. You were supposed to be predictable. Instead, you turned your whole existence into performance art. Violent, beautiful, and completely outside the script. This level of winning, it don't come with applause. It comes with silence, with rumors, with distance. Because when people realize you're no longer controllable, they label you unstable. Not because you've changed, but because they can't access the version of you that needed them anymore. You want to know what the real crime is? That it took pain this loud to make you finally listen to your own voice. That you had to lose almost everything before you realized you were the one carrying the weight all along. That you were the backbone of circles that never clapped for you. That your absence hurt more than your presence was ever appreciated. You broke your back for people who wouldn't even bend. And now that you're choosing you, you're the villain? Oh, let them talk. Let them spin their little stories. Let them try to rewrite the narrative like you weren't there bleeding ink into every page. Because when they say you changed, they mean you stopped performing weakness to make them feel strong. They mean you stopped showing up small so they could feel big. They mean you stopped sacrificing your sanity to play a role they cast for you without your permission. And now you're winning, loudly, unapologetically, illegally. They want to call the feds, tell them to bring a psychologist too. Because what you just did wasn't just a breakthrough. It was a case study. You became the evidence of what happens when someone finally stops apologizing for their fire. You walked into hell and didn't just survive. You redesigned it. Built condos, added lighting, charged rent. You didn't rise from the ashes. You colonized them. You turned rock bottom into a real estate investment. You looked at rock bottom and said, cool. How many bedrooms? You ever see someone so used to losing that when they finally win, the entire world starts glitching? That's you. You are the glitch in the matrix, the error in the simulation, the exception they can't code out. Because no matter how much they tried to program you with fear, you kept upgrading your defiance. No matter how many patches they rolled out to slow you down, you jailbroke the whole damn system. And now the software can't handle your swagger. They made rules. You made war. They made boxes. You made exits. They made noise. You made history. This ain't just doing well. This is public disturbance. This is unauthorized greatness. This is unlicensed glory. This is a high-speed chase with no rearview mirror. Because you ain't looking back, there's nothing behind you worth mourning. And the funny part, you still ain't even hit your final form. You're just warming up. You're just now learning how to breathe in atmospheres that were never meant to sustain your kind of oxygen. You're just now realizing that your voice don't echo. It shatters, and now the world has to adjust to the volume, to the voltage, to the villain you became when the hero role stopped fitting. You're not walking proof, you're walking contradiction. You're what happens when the underdog grows fangs, when the quiet one learns to bark, when the good kid burns the blueprint, when the overlooked one stops waiting to be seen and becomes impossible to ignore. You know what's really criminal? That it took this long, that it took this much silence, betrayal, erasure, abandonment, just to arrive. Just to finally hear yourself think without the static of everybody else's opinions drowning you. And now you're here. Not knocking on doors, breaking them down, not asking for a seat, flipping the whole damn table, not asking, am I enough? Declaring, I'm too much, and that's the point. They want to label this insane, good, because it takes a little madness to unlearn helplessness. It takes a little delusion to rewrite destiny. It takes a little darkness to carry your own light. And you are the wild card in a rigged deck, the storm that learned how to walk upright, the myth they'll tell in whispers, the threat that smiles back. They tried to bury you. They didn't know you were federal property, high risk, untouchable, flagged. They rang the whole FBI because this level of winning ain't legal. And when they scanned your fingerprints across the system, all they found were smudges of resistance and DNA laced with defiance. You don't have a record? You are the record, the precedent, the evidence that a human soul, when cornered and betrayed, can evolve into a force of nature so raw, so uncontainable, that even laws feel flimsy next to it. They tried to define you by metrics, grades, salaries, status, followers. But how do you measure the velocity of someone who broke time with their comeback? How do you quantify a mind that reassembled itself in the dark, with no manual, no map, and no mercy? How do you report someone who isn't playing to win, but to reconstruct reality in their own language? The files don't exist for this. There's no database for what you've become. The red tape melts when you walk in. The protocol glitches at your shadow because you didn't just break through. You rewrote the access codes. You moved like smoke and struck like prophecy. And they don't know whether to fear you or study you. They don't know if you're the villain or the warning. They don't know if this is a rise or an outbreak. Because the truth is, your glow don't come from light. It comes from friction, from dragging yourself through every version of hell they swore would finish you. And instead of staying down, you collected the flames like souvenirs. You wear fire like cologne now. You speak thunder like it's your first language. You cracked your own code and weaponized your wounds. You turned your scars into spell work, into blueprints, into legends. And somewhere deep in the static, the same voices that once mocked you are choking on their doubts because you turned every "you can't" into a criminal offense. You should have crumbled. You should have quit. You should have bowed. But instead you grew teeth where they expected tears. You learned how to smile like a threat. You found rhythm in the rage. And when peace didn't come knocking, you built your own war drum. This ain't inspiration. This is invasion. This is you infiltrating the silence they buried you in. This is you making noise so loud it registers as an earthquake on the Richter scale of their egos. You are not their feel-good story. You are not a redemption arc. You are the plot twist they never saw coming. The aftershock of every time they overlooked, underestimated, and overstepped. Because people don't know what to do when the victim grows fangs. When the rejected one learns how to roar. When the one who lost everything comes back with eyes that don't blink and a pulse that don't beg. You remember when they said, "You've changed." Of course you changed. You're supposed to. What kind of monster stays soft after betrayal that surgical? What kind of soul stays innocent after being dissected by people who swore they loved you? You bled in rooms where they smiled. You drowned in conversations where no one noticed. You carried guilt that wasn't even yours, just because silence is addictive and confrontation felt like sin. But the guilt got boring. The silence got loud. The pain got organized. And one morning you didn't rise from bed. You rose from the grave. And when your feet hit the ground, something ancient moved with you. Something ancestral. Something forged in all the names they called you when you weren't around to defend yourself. That's what they hear echoing now. That low hum in the air when you walk past. That's the sound of spirit reclaiming its weaponry. That's the hum of bones realigning with truth. That's you walking as the aftermath of every betrayal they thought you'd never survive. And you carry it well. Too well. So well, it terrifies them. Because you learned how to look composed while unraveling galaxies inside your chest. Because you mastered the art of becoming louder by saying less. Because your presence alone triggers alarms that weren't built for love. They were built for war. And you are war now, the walking revolution, the blueprint rewritten in blood, caffeine, and sleepless nights. You became the kind of person no one warns others about, not because you're safe, but because there are no words to describe the kind of threat that evolves beyond language. They'll call it ego. They'll call it arrogance. They'll say you've lost your way. Because power looks like pride when it finally stops apologizing. Because freedom looks like madness when you're not the one holding the leash. But you're not chasing approval anymore. You're not waiting for permission. You're not explaining why your light doesn't dim gently like theirs does. Because you don't dim. You burn, you blind, you disrupt. You expose the cracks in the ceiling they told you was the sky. And you can feel it, can't you? The way your very existence bends the temperature of a room. The way your silence demands more respect than their noise ever could. The way your smile looks like a loaded weapon to the insecure. Because what you've done, what you've become, it's not normal. It's not expected. It's not safe. And that's exactly the point. They don't want you alive, in this form, not this loud, not this real, not this unforgivingly whole. Because a person this complete can't be controlled. A person this awake can't be sedated. You learned how to channel chaos. You learned how to turn heartbreak into hydraulics. You learned that the finish line was never real. It was just a wall made of opinions and old fears. And you walked straight through it like it was cellophane. They told you to heal quietly. You rebuilt yourself in surround sound. They told you to forgive. You forgot the part where you needed their apology first. They told you to move on. You moved through. With heat. With hurt. With history on your heels screaming your name like a war chant. And what they didn't realize is that by the time they circled back to check if you were okay, you had already transformed into a myth they weren't holy enough to remember. You're not back. You're born again, not in light. In voltage, not in peace. In vengeance. Not to be palatable. To be proof that resilience ain't cute. It's carnivorous. You ever watch someone dance in the ruins of everything meant to kill them? That's what you look like. Not reborn, recoded, not recovered, re-weaponized, not returned, risen. And every step you take from here on out is being recorded. Not by cameras, but by consciousness. By everyone who ever doubted you. By the people who sleep on your name but twitch when they hear your voice. By the world that's starting to ask, what happens if we can't stop them? Because they tried. They all tried. And still, you move. And still, you move. Through rooms that weren't designed to hold you. Through systems that tremble under your footsteps. Through frameworks built to collapse if someone like you ever dared to breathe this deeply. Because your breath alone is resistance. Every inhale is an indictment. Every exhale is an act of war. They can't measure you anymore. Because you slipped out of their formulas. You don't compute. You don't conform. You don't fit. Because you've become the thing they never prepared for. A person who stopped needing permission to exist. And the truth is, they watched you break. They watched you unravel. They watched you fall apart in front of them. Piece by jagged piece. And they thought that was the end. But you were just disassembling the version of yourself that was built to survive. in silence. You were just gutting out the programming that taught you how to stay small, stay soft, stay obedient. They didn't realize you weren't dying. You were mutating. You were molting. You were burning the costume they gave you at birth. The one that said, be polite, be manageable, be grateful for crumbs, be the kind of quiet that doesn't make waves. And instead, you became the ocean, loud, unruly, uncharted. You became the storm surge crashing through every polite smile and forced apology you ever swallowed. You found out the truth, that your fear was inherited, that your guilt was installed, that your dreams were downgraded by the people too afraid to chase their own, and you unplugged, not from the world, but from their version of you. And now your energy don't match theirs anymore. Because you learned how to walk away without shrinking, how to cut ties without bleeding out, how to speak your mind without softening the edges for their comfort. Because comfort was the cage. Comfort was the currency of the powerless. And you finally realized you were never meant to be comfortable. You were meant to be legendary. That's why you never fit in. That's why you always felt like you were too much or not enough at the same time. Because you weren't made to belong to people. You were made to break them open. You walk like a question they don't want to answer. You speak like a truth they buried generations ago. You smile like someone who knows exactly who they are. And that's the threat. You didn't just evolve. You remembered. You remembered who you were before the world got to you. Before the masks. Before the compromise. Before the trauma got comfortable living rent-free in your chest. You remembered. And that memory shook the ground. Because when someone remembers who they are, not who they were told to be, not who they became to survive, but who they actually are under all the noise, they become a walking contradiction to everything we're taught about limits. You are that contradiction. You are the audacity that keeps the world up at night. You are the glitch that makes the whole simulation pause and ask, wait, are they really doing this? You are the unlicensed miracle that refuses to sign the non-disclosure agreement. They keep trying to figure out what you're doing differently. But this level of transformation don't come from tactics. It don't come from books or mantras or manifesting under moonlight. This kind of power, it comes from loss, from grief, from sitting in rooms where no one noticed you were bleeding out. It comes from lonely nights and loud thoughts, from burning everything that ever felt safe just to find the truth hiding under the ashes, from learning how to clap for yourself in silence because no one else knew what it cost you to keep breathing. They want your glow, but not your shadows. They want your strength, but not your story. They want your results, but not your roots. But this wind didn't come from sunshine. It came from shrapnel. It came from choking on your own dreams until you learned how to breathe fire. You ever choke on potential for so long that when you finally cough it up, it explodes. That's what happened when you stopped begging for space. That's what happened when you stopped waiting for them to pick you. That's what happened when you picked yourself. And now, the world is playing catch-up, trying to locate the version of you they thought they could control, trying to resurrect the version that stayed quiet, that stayed soft, that stayed beneath their comfort ceiling. But that version is dead. You buried them in silence, no funeral, no obituary, just rebirth. And what rose in their place? It don't ask, it don't wait, it don't soften, it moves with certainty, with sharpness, with eyes that have seen the inside of grief and teeth that know how to chew through fate itself. You are not safe anymore. And that's the beauty of it. You're not neat, you're not packaged, you're not branded, You're volatile, unfiltered, unforgiving, and every part of your being hums with the frequency of never again. They want to charge you with the crime of becoming yourself. They want to call it rebellion when you finally stop playing dead. They want to diagnose you with rage when you finally stop swallowing your voice. But what they're really afraid of is this. You found the fuse, and you lit it. And you're still burning, not for revenge, not for clout, not for their applause, but because existence in its rawest form is the ultimate revenge. Every breath you take now is evidence. Every step, a violation. Every smile, contraband. Because people like you, people who stop waiting and start becoming, don't walk through life. You detonate through it. They're still watching, still listening, still praying for the old you to come back. But you don't come back.